To create your appointment types, click on the plus symbol in the navigation bar, and then click on the section named Appointment Types. Next, hit the Go button next to the All List view to see every appointment type that is already created within your system. Next, click on the New Appointment Type button at the top of the page. The first required field is the name of the appointment type. Some examples might be ABA therapy, supervision, staff meeting, and staff member unavailable. The next thing to select is the scope of the appointment type. There are 3 options to choose from: student therapy, student non-therapy, and non-student. Essentially, the scope determines which resources need to be selected at the time of creating the appointment. Student therapy is the most common scope for appointment types. Essentially, this means that appointments with this appointment type selected will include a student and one of your office staff members. Examples might be ABA therapy, supervision, initial assessments, and more. The next option is student non-therapy and is the most uncommon scope used on appointment types. The student non-therapy scope would be used if you want to place an appointment on the student's calendar but not block off it on any of your staff members' calendar. For example, if you wanted to block off that the student was going to be at summer camp for 2 weeks in August, you could place an appointment on what's called the student calendar, but you would not want to block that time off on any of your therapist's calendar. So that would be an example of an appointment type with a student non-therapy scope. Often centers will only have one student non-therapy appointment type named student unavailable. The third and final scope is non-student. This means that no student will be involved in the appointment. A few examples would be staff meetings or therapist unavailable. In other words, creating an appointment type to block out therapists that are not available to be scheduled at certain times. For my supervision appointment type, I'm going to choose the most common option of student therapy. The next 3 fields on the new appointment type window are optional: default location, default billing provider, and default duration. If this appointment type is always performed at a specific location, you can press the lookup button and click on any one of your locations that you added in the previous step. This means that anytime this appointment type is selected, the location of the appointment will automatically be selected to the location selected here. If the location varies from appointment to appointment, then it's best to leave this field blank. If this appointment type is specific to a specific billing provider in your center, then you can click on the lookup and select that specific billing provider. At this point, you may not have billing providers set up yet in your system. That is a step later on in the setup guide, so you can always come back and add a billing provider here if needed. You can also default billing providers at the student level, so this is definitely an optional field. The default duration can be filled out if the duration of this appointment type is always the same. So for example, if your supervision appointments are always 90 minutes, we'll go ahead and type in 90 here. If the duration of the appointment type will change from appointment to appointment, it's best to leave this field blank. The color field is important. The color field determines what color the appointments will show up when you're looking at the calendar. To select a color, simply click within the field and a color palette will appear. Next, simply click in the general vicinity of the color that you wish for this appointment to appear. Then you can use the slider bar on the right side to fine-tune the color. We recommend that you use darker colors as the font that appears inside of the appointment is white, and therefore lighter colors makes it very difficult to read the white font within the appointment screen. You may wish to enter in a color description to give a more descriptive version of the color rather than the hexadecimal code that you see in the color section. On the right side of the screen, you have an active checkbox. If you choose to discontinue use of this appointment type, you can simply edit the appointment type and uncheck the active checkbox. This will make it so that it is no longer selectable when creating an appointment. The non-billable checkbox is used for student therapy appointments that will never have a session created for them. So in other words, if it's a type of appointment that you would never bill for, nor create clinical documentation, then you can check the non-billable checkbox, and therefore you will not be able to choose an authorization on the appointment, nor will you be able to create a session to do any clinical documentation. The Require Authorization checkbox means that this appointment type always requires an authorization. When this appointment type is selected on an appointment, the appointment cannot be saved without attaching an authorization to the appointment. This step will ensure that the person creating the appointment always attaches an authorization if necessary. Once you have completed the necessary fields within the new appointment type window, simply hit the Save button. Then repeat the process for as many appointment types as are necessary to do your scheduling for your center.